that it's important to understand the essence of religion, and not only that, if you are a true representative, you must know the essence of religion also. And if you don't know, then you may not represent the authorities, religious authorities properly. Okay? Or you may act without understanding what is and what is not. So that's the main principle here. So here, what is dharma is religious principle, adharma is irreligious. So they wanted to ask the Yamadutas to clarify, make it clear. So Prabhupada gives a few points here in this purport. He says, the servant must know the master's instructions. It's not just the master says, go and get me this thing, and then he'll just run and then he don't know where to look for. Rather, the way a servant should act is, okay, where should I get this from if you do not know? Should I get it from place A, B or C? And then the Guru will give the answer, okay, go and get it from this place. Right? Sometimes we think we know all and then we don't get the right thing, and then there will be a big problem. Get me the book from the shelf about Krishna. Then if you don't clarify what book, there's a whole book, all Bhagavatam is about Krishna. So which book, my dear spiritual master? Is it the Bhagavatam or is it by the Acharyas? Which book? Yeah. So it's important to clarify. So that means simply knowing something is not good enough. You have to really understand what it is all about also. So must know the master's instructions properly. Because in the context is they were trying to capture a Jamil and take him to hell. So therefore, in terms of Dharma, they have misunderstood some aspect, which is why the Vishnu Dutas want to clarify, want to make them understand what they have done is wrong. As devotees, we should know everything in the scripture. Prabhupada wants us to know properly the books. We study and know, so that even if we are not eloquent, we know the principles. And so when someone says something, we can give them the proper answers. We know what Krishna's instruction is in the Bhagavad Gita. So we should study the Bhagavad Gita very nicely, very succinctly, so that we know exactly what Krishna wants us to do. Ultimately, Prabhupada says we have to surrender to Krishna. But surrendering to Krishna means you following his instructions, actually. Whatever Krishna tells us to do. So real religion is surrender to Krishna. Sarva dharma parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja, Prabhupada says. Of course, those who do not surrender are described in the Bhagavad Gita also, 7:15. Namam duskritano mutta pravidanti naradama. Right? So, who are they? They are the lowest of mankind. Muddha is foolish, completely foolish, very foolish. Prabhupada also says Muddha means they work hard, like donkeys. They work so hard, earn something, but they don't understand what's the goal of life. And then Naradama means very low within the mankind, like they don't even know how to behave like humans. And then Maya Parita Jnana. Although they may be educated, they have PhDs and so on, but they don't know how to understand how to live. Nor do they understand that they are an illusion. Okay? And then finally you have the Asuras who are openly atheistic. Yeah. Openly atheistic. So these people don't actually surrender. So Prabhupada wants us to also understand why these people don't understand, because most of them are in illusion. They don't understand their position in this material society. So Srila Prabhupada then says preachers must know the philosophy, otherwise they become embarrassed. Yeah. Obviously when you go out on books and so on, you get to practice. with a lot of Jai Shri Shri Gaurita Ki Jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai Ki Jai. Yeah, because sometimes you will find the person or the people you are speaking to may be a philosopher, an educated person from university, and they may ask you questions about what about this theory or that philosophy, and we don't need to study in the universities to know what they are. We all have to do is study proper books and proper highlights. What is Mayavadi philosophy? What is the logic that used by some of the philosophers, and they have their own understanding. What is based on bhakti? What is based on karma? What is based on jnana? All these philosophies are there. When we say karma, mostly people follow karma kanda, pious activities, and so on. So a preacher must know our philosophy and how it deals with all this philosophy. Part of karma, karma kanda, then karma mimamsa, and then in jnana. Jnana could be speculative or impersonal understanding, and so on. So we have to know that very clearly. Otherwise, when they ask questions, we don't know how to make them understand the position of bhakti in relation to all the other principles of religion, so-called. And at the same time, we can highlight why some of the philosophies are not really real religious principles. More often than not, you talk to people, they say the goal of life is just to be happy. Which is true, because the jiva is always looking for that happiness, but they don't understand that it is the atma, the spirit that is looking for happiness, not the body. They identify with the body, and therefore they think the goal of this material life is to just enjoy. And what about others who are not happy? That's their problem. So it's a different kind of philosophy in this world. Wherever you go, they all want to be happy, but how they become happy is they don't believe in morality, ethics, and so on as well. They think if you can get away with it without being caught, it's okay. They don't believe there's a witness, they don't believe there's karma, and so on. So when we understand that, all those philosophies, when we talk to them, we can very nicely bring them to the understanding of what we are practicing, where they are lacking, but not telling them that they are lacking it, but highlighting the differences. And that's all you have to do, highlight and show them that this is what we believe in. And when they think about it, they will realize these people have more understanding than they themselves have. Or sometimes they say, we don't have to do anything, all we have to do is we accept this personality and we are free from sins. And so you meet people like that. And then we ask, how is it that you can continue to sin, and then you say you're qualified? You have not transformed, your heart is not transformed, you're not a person who loves other living entities also. So how is it a better religion? So when we highlight like that, when we preach to people, not directly, but by quoting from the scriptures, what is the goal of one who is a saintly person, the qualities of saintly persons, we highlight that also. Then when they think about that, then they know they don't know. Right? So it's very important. Otherwise, if we don't know our philosophy properly, then we become embarrassed. Because I remember one young girl in the Indian family, she went to college, but because her parents didn't talk about religious systems or why we practice, and even if she had asked, they couldn't answer many things and they never bothered. So when she went to the university, her friends were all Christian, so they invited her to Christian Bible group study and all. And they said this is the book of God and so on. And sure enough, she studied then and she became a Christian. And then she started preaching to her mom, you're going to go to hell. So then the parents came to the temple and then they asked us, can you please talk to our daughter? She is, telling us that we are going to go to hell. So then I said, okay, I'll talk to them. But I said, it's kind of late, for you to bring your child at this age. The girl was almost 23 or something, They've already formulated an understanding and so on. And she was like a hardcore Christian. So we sat and then we talked. And then she kind of agreed to many of the things that I discussed. But then always she will fall back on, because I've accepted Christ, I don't have to worry about all these things. That's how the discussion went. And I said, that's okay, you practice what Christ says, but don't be a hypocrite, These are the teachings of Christ, you should also reflect on that also. Then I said, but why do you harass your mother, You are the product of everything she did. And then now you are attacking your own mother. Why can't you tolerate what she is doing, or move out of the house if you don't like what she's doing? But she couldn't understand that. She couldn't say, no, she's going to hell. Which is true. Yeah. But she couldn't understand there should be compassion. I said, if you treat her nicely, she may become Christian also. But she couldn't understand that, She said, no. So you can see, we may have the philosophy and so on, but if we do not deliver it properly, people may misunderstand, or the devotee may not practice it and do not know what the philosophy is. This is quite common in our movement. Many times we find many devotees, they are initiated, but they never read Prabhupada's books. And therefore they don't understand how to practice properly also. That's one thing. And then they don't know how to associate. They don't know how to do service. But they are initiated. I'm initiated 15, 20 years. I remember another incident also, one devotee, this was in the 90s, he was Prabhupada disciple, he was arguing with my Guru Maharaj. And then my Guru Maharaj quoted a verse. And he said, you're making this up. Where is this from? My Guru Maharaj said, it's a nectar of instruction, you can read. And he looked, and then he looked, and then he stood up and walked out. He didn't want to say anything that he was right or wrong. So, it's embarrassing that if you don't know the philosophy. It's embarrassing when we don't know how to take care of the deities and so on also, because people are going to come. Someone up from the street and they say this place is not well taken care, then it's embarrassing to Prabhupada. So in many temples you see, there's always someone there at all times making sure that guests come, the guests will know what they know the stuff, they take them around, they describe the deities, they describe Mahaprabhu's movement, ISKCON, Prabhupada, like that. So there's always an individual here making sure that outside people, when they come, they have sufficient information going away. These people know what they are talking about. So it's very important for us to make sure. And therefore, the maintenance of the temple is important. Cleanliness, everything should be pakka. People shouldn't find fault with Prabhupada's movement. They can find fault with us, that's okay. But they shouldn't find fault with Srila Prabhupada's movement. Otherwise, we will all be embarrassed. That is part of preaching. That's our philosophy, how we take care of things and so on. Yeah. Alright, so Dharma is not just some ritual, Nowadays this is a fashion, in the Indian, those from Indian background, they think Dharma means just some ritual. Okay, there's yagna, then they will come to the temple. It's just kirtan, then you don't find many of these practitioners of so-called Vedic culture, It is not like that. Dharma, as I mentioned yesterday, it brings us, if you practice properly, it should bring you closer to Krishna. Yeah, that is Dharma. Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Real religious principles are coming from Krishna. Why? So that when we practice it, we come to Krishna. Krishna gives us how to come to Him. He gives us everything. He gives you the whole, 9 yards. So you practice, you go back to Godhead. So ultimately, the Prabhupada emphasized in this particular purport is that Sarva Dharma Parityaja. He says all kinds of religious principles where you see in the world, ultimately they are supposed to come and surrender to Krishna. In one sense, we also have our own, apart from the Vedic Dharma, we have our own Dharma. Right? You get up and do something, you have your own, family thing you do, some ritual you do at home, and so Krishna says, give up all that nonsense, because that's not going to bring you closer to Him. So it's very important to understand that. So, adharma means we are forgetful of Krishna, actually. That's the bottom line. The performance of dharma centers around honesty, compassion, chanting, seva, helping others, and so on. But adharma is anything that we can do apart from pleasing Krishna or even society. So therefore, these 4 categories you can say, miscreants. Anyone who's a miscreant is also adharmic. Duskritina in that verse, but Prabhupada doesn't touch on it. He says all these people are duskritinas. Right? But actually, these are all states of consciousness. Today you're a duskrita, tomorrow you're a sukritina. Right? You meet some devotee and your consciousness changes, and then you become no more mutta, you become a bhakta. So these are all states of consciousness, and we shouldn't just, happily label people, that devotee is a duskrita. We do that sometimes. Or he doesn't speak properly, or he forgot something, say, because he is working too much, Maya Bharita here. It's a possibility in terms of a consciousness. You could be in that condition, but not necessarily. Anyone can rise above these states of consciousness simply by performing bhakti. So, in modern society, you find adharma exists different way. There are a group of people, we are believers of nature. Right? You see we love everybody, but it's where is the nature coming from? So they cannot, or they won't accept that. Or they'll say we are vegans, we believe in ahimsa. We get situations like that, One time, His Holiness Indradumna Swami came to our temple in Houston, and we have a small farm with cows. So the people who were vegans, they started to bring carts and not riot, but they were walking around and making a mess because he was doing a program in the city, in the hall. So they were outside, placards walking around saying ISKCON is mistreating cows, unfairly and so on. Because they don't understand. They have no philosophy. All they see is that if the cows they think we are forcefully making the cows pregnant and then milking the milk, or milking the cow. Right? So you find people like this is how adharma pervades society nowadays. Or they follow some social trends. Right? Everyone follows some. The haircut. The haircut for men now, there's no hair completely on this side, and then it just sticks out like one of those, right? I don't know what you call that toy. It sprouts the right? The sprouting thing that comes out like that. So blindly follow some social tendencies or trends. People. Or they do some religious activity, some so-called, I'm from this church or that temple, but they don't follow anything to make themselves better, or they don't even surrender to God. Some countries they'll kill people and they'll still say, I'm doing it for God. Right? So the principles are all not understanding what the real purpose of religion is. So if you claim within this Prabhupada's main points or principles, he's saying is, if you claim to represent someone, you must know their mission. Just like, do we know what Prabhupada's mission is? Do we know what Prabhupada's mood is or not? So unless you read Prabhupada's books, you hear his classes, you cannot have that. Mostly nowadays the modern trend is listening to all the different classes, oh, this is so great, wonderful. But what's the mood of Prabhupada? Many people don't know what Prabhupada's mood is, Even if you listen to your Guru Maharaj, you should understand, everyone is following Prabhupada in their own way. But the way they see Prabhupada's mood is different also. So if you keep following, we will essentially after some time lose what Prabhupada's mood and mission is. Because the Guru's mission may be part of Prabhupada's mission, but it is not necessarily encompassing everything. So that's a danger that we have to be very careful. And then the value also. What is Prabhupada's values? What were some of his values? How he saw life and so on. And what are some of the instructions, or all of his instructions? So here the Yamadutas, although they were doing their so-called duty, they didn't understand completely what Yamaraja's rule and mission and dharma, everything, they didn't understand completely. All they knew is, sin, take them back. Right? They didn't understand higher principles of spirituality where someone can be liberated if they do something even such. They were more focused on the punishment, not by the justice that came through devotion. Yeah. Right? So it applies to all of us also. Right? So when we want to represent Krishna or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Srila Prabhupada, we must live by the teachings. Right? We cannot just sit and profess and tell others what to do, and then we don't do it. Right? You smoke and then you say, this is bad for you. You shouldn't be doing it, and you keep smoking. Right? Yeah. Especially I've seen that parents, they'll be doing something, drinking. This is not good for you. I know you're saying me drink, but I'm telling you, it's very bad. The kid is like, wait till I get 18, I'll show you what bad is. Right? So we have to live by the teachings. Similarly, if you want your child to be Krishna conscious, you must be Krishna conscious. If you don't behave in the fashion that they can learn, right? They have to see examples. Children always have to see examples. They say, oh, my mom and my dad asked me to do this, but they are not doing it. What does it mean, And then they go to the school, and then the kids will tell you, no, I don't have to listen to that. They don't know. They're just exploiting you. Parents do that. That's how they talk nowadays. They think they are adults and they can manipulate us. We don't have to listen to them. The Gen Zs, they think differently now. Or we don't have to go to school. We don't need. We get job will be there. Why bother? Be happy. It's a similar trend to the 60s where a lot of the young generation would talk like, I'm okay, you're okay. They leave us be, like that. That kind of mood is coming back here. So we have to understand all the purpose behind the rules we follow in Krishna consciousness, why we follow certain things. So that when people ask, we can actually tell them why we are following, why no meat eating, we want to develop compassion to other living entities also, not just animals, even other living entities. They'll say, what about the plants? You're also killing the plants. Yes, we know. That's why we do another extra process where we pray to the Lord to forgive us for that. Otherwise we cannot survive in this world. You don't have to say we offer and all that, because then they think these guys are weird, Yeah. They're praying. So we say we ask for forgiveness, and then we do that. Just like the Muslims have the halal thing, I'll kill this animal, but Lord forgive me. They kill, and then that's halal. Or the Jews, the blood cannot be spilled, or the blood is drained first before they kill the animals and cut it up. So they have their own, everyone has their own rules to follow. So we should understand the purpose behind the rules. And when we are out there telling people about our practices, we should do it in a very humble fashion, not in an arrogant way, because arrogance doesn't bring friendship. Arrogance brings arrogance. Arrogance brings subjugation. Arrogance also brings anger from the other part. You evoke those kind of sentiments on others. And arrogance, when you're too arrogant and prideful, the other person wants to smash you. So they will find ways to. So therefore, representing Krishna, Prabhupada, we shouldn't have that. We should be just humble about what we know. Nimitte matrena, become instruments of Krishna. Don't become controllers. Mostly for newcomers, we just say, don't worry, about the philosophy first. Just come and dance and sing and take prasadam, nice feast, and just chant. We'll give you the beats, That's how you connect with God. Very simple, actually, our process. We don't have to go to too much philosophy. Later on, if they ask questions, then we can give them the philosophy. And of all the process of surrender, the easiest one is chanting. And that's all, So it's not about becoming perfect, it's about direction. It's about direction. Dharma is about direction. It points you to Krishna. So for new young people, they don't want to know God, but you can say this is benefits you. It points towards perfection. It points towards peace. It points towards love. And so we say Dharma is this. So they will say, okay, that sounds cool. I can relate to that. Right? And then personally, one should choose Krishna over peer pressures, family peers. They do so much pressure. Oh, you have to do this. I met so many devotees who take up Krishna consciousness, and they're good devotees, but then their family members will say, you have to do this ritual. You have to do that ritual. And then they'll say, what to do, what to do. The answer is very simple. Just do it to please them. That's all. Why are you getting so flustered about it? It's not going to kill you. Oh, my mother-in-law said I have to do this, otherwise there'll be bad luck, and so on and so on. Okay, just do it, please her. So she won't disturb you. Or she won't speak negatively of Krishna and Prabhupada like that. So studying the books of Prabhupada, so we know his mood and mission, but it has to be a regular process. A daily process. Daily we should read some portions of Prabhupada's books and see what he's trying to say, how we can implement in our own life. And then we can then understand why we have to serve the Lord and the devotees, and why we are chanting. We will understand that clearly. And therefore when people see us, they'll say these people have integrity. They live by their principles. They are good people. They are well-wishers of society. And so that's why as leaders we should do that. And as leaders also we should teach the principles and not just rules. no, 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 no. What's behind those? What's the principle behind? That's important. And similarly, even devotees should know why we are telling them to do. Mostly, there's a tendency to say, don't ask any question, just do. That's laziness, actually. And devotees are not lazy people. We are very active in terms of putting Krishna forward or Srila Prabhupada forward. So these are all very important things. Yeah. So our role is to deliver the correct message. If I do not know the person's message properly, then I will misrepresent. So I have to understand very clearly what the message is. So in terms of Ajamil, you can see he transformed, so therefore the Dharma in his case is not about his past mistakes. It's not at all about the past mistake. It's about his surrender, which has put him in a new destination. So that's very important, yeah. Okay, so Prabhupada want us to know, importantly in this particular purport, surrender to Krishna. Dharma means to remember Krishna. Adharma means to forget Krishna. And then Prabhupada said you have to know your master's mission, mood, and so on. And then he says we have to know our philosophy very nicely. Okay. Comments and questions? I had shorter time to speak, so.
So many things to say, ask. So what Krishna says, I was thinking of this last night. Krishna says Sarva Dharma Prachaja. It doesn't say Sarva Adharma Prachaja. So there's that story of, the two students come to the teacher and one knows, has learnt before, and then the other one hasn't, so he's a clean slate. So sometimes you wonder, is Krishna saying sometimes people who are completely convinced that their Dharma is right, they're actually more difficult to convince about Krishna consciousness than people who are maybe sinful, but they haven't got any preconceived notion. I was just wondering.
Yeah, that's a very good point also. It's easier to give people Krishna consciousness when they don't know anything. We do encounter difficulties when people come from some religious background because they have faith in that, and therefore they have a harder time to accept something that they are not familiar with. So when you present the philosophy, it is in conflict with what they have understood, what they practice. So whenever there is a conflict and then that conflict is not resolved, then the fear comes into place. And when you are fearful, it's very hard to embrace something different, right? It's like if you are in a bungee jumping, right? You have the rope tied, but you're fearful. You should be. And then it is that when you have faith eventually, when you believe in the person saying, then you find that you're safe, then it's okay. But otherwise you won't take that leap of faith. But generally, mostly the way I see it is, faith is not so much the philosophy, it's the person they're dealing with. And if that person is genuine and loving and a well-wisher, then it's easier to overcome the fear of surrendering to the process. And so that's more important in our circle. So when Krishna says Sarva Dharma, means there's so many things, so many religious people read one aspect of the Vedas and then they adopt that also, that practice. And that may not be enough. But when you follow what Krishna's teaching is in the Shastra and so on, then you do many things. So therefore, most of our practices are what Prabhupada wanted us to do, that's all. And who is Prabhupada representing? Prabhupada is representing Krishna. And so we are surrendering to Krishna through Prabhupada. Otherwise we won't surrender. If Prabhupada didn't come around and give us this, who's going to surrender to Krishna? We will be following something that we think is good for us. Something that works, make me, happy, or so-called happiness. So in general, people without religion, their religion is the work, making money. This is their religion. In a sense, it's like karma kanda. They do rituals to get favors from the demigods or boons from the demigods. So, yes, Prabhu.
So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for very, very unique class. You mentioned that easiest way to, in terms of all the difficulties or not, anyway we all have difficulties, is to chant.
Yeah.
We should chant, probably. It's very essential.
Yeah.
Because dvandas will always be there, ups and downs,
Yes.
difficulties, everything. That's how the nature is.
That is correct. One of the things is, if you are alone, then you do not see your progression. And that in itself will create doubts. So with devotees, then there is reinforcement of your practices, and you feel confident that I am making some advancement. And they will say, hey, you have improved. You're not doing this thing before you were doing all these things, now you're doing. That reinforcement helps. So our practice should be with the devotees, not apart from devotees. We are not Haridas Thakur, I was reading the other day, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's, what kind of cheater are you? He says, you go alone and chant and not with the devotees. Yeah. So that's important also. Yes, chanting is very, very potent, but it's most potent when we all chanting together. But of course, if you are sick and you have to be in your room and chant, that's different. Yeah.
In general also, not only that, we can be alone while in the office and things, so always remember Krishna. Always remember Krishna.
Yeah, you can do that, it's good. Yeah. Yes,
you're mentioning like that Srila Prabhupada is representing Krishna. And in our modern day society, we see people that have actually initially received instructions from Srila Prabhupada, but then, that you have like a rogue cop or a rogue state, they then misunderstand those instructions, and they'll come up with things like that. Now ISKCON is no longer representing Prabhupada. So sometimes you meet people like that, they say, oh yes, I have faith in Krishna, I have faith in Prabhupada, but I don't have faith in ISKCON. So therefore there's some tension there. So how do we appropriately deal with that situation?
You're dealing with, generally when you're dealing with people who are not really reading Prabhupada's books, when they come to such conclusions, because ultimately, what does Prabhupada say? He says one has to surrender. And he also has made statement that ISKCON is his body, things like that. And that GBC is the ultimate authority. A surrender doesn't mean I can surrender to Krishna, but I can't surrender to his representatives. Right? So you meet people like that because they don't have faith actually in the process to start off with. That's one thing. And secondly, these people, they are always looking for, or they were always looking for a reason not to follow authorities. So when there's conflict of interest, then they can always blame and say, this is the reason. I'm not following ISKCON because they this problem, that problem. So I'm not following. It's an excuse not to follow an authority. Most people don't want to be under some, like a guru tells you go and do this, you feel like squeamish and don't want to do sometimes. But then you do it because you are surrendered. If you don't do it, then you're a fool. So in that sense, you can say, yes, they may have encountered some negative reactions or feelings with some devotee, but that's no excuse to put the whole movement into that understanding. That's not correct, It's not logical also, You cannot blame the whole movement for one person's mistake. You can't do that, For example, if an Aborigine steals something, doesn't mean the whole population of Aborigines are thieves, Or it's just even Italian doesn't play soccer doesn't mean that he's not Italian, We cannot make judgment calls like that, which is what a person, as you mentioned, somebody made a mistake in ISKCON, doesn't mean I don't accept ISKCON anymore. I only accept Prabhupada. Why? Because Prabhupada is not going to talk to you anymore. So you can do any damn thing you want. And you only surrender to Krishna. You're saying you're surrendered to Krishna, but but Krishna is not talking to you. So how are you going to make advancement? You fool, Yeah? We have to tell them, who's going to correct you when you are not made. They can't say, I will know because no, nonsense. You're not advanced enough for Krishna to come. You think Krishna will take an avatar just to come and tell you what to do? You're so special. Yeah. Are you Satyavrata Muni, where Krishna came as Matsya avatar? You're not. You're not in that category. So we should also be strong and advocate that they are wrong. We shouldn't be afraid to tell them they are wrong. We should tell them there's nothing wrong. You're a fool and you don't know and you're going in the wrong path. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to always follow authority. Even if the authorities make mistake, we should follow because Krishna will protect us. And the authorities, if they make mistake, they have to suffer the reactions. So why are you taking this position where if you are not under the protection of Srila Prabhupada and the movement, then you are under the protection of material energy and therefore you will fall. Actually, when people make such statements, they want to fall down. Just like, do you want the blue pill or the red pill? Yeah? And in that story, there's one guy who wanted to go back into Maya. So there are people, individuals like that. They cannot handle the purification process of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, they rather be ignoramus, ignorant fool. Ignorance is bliss. Because I don't know what is right and wrong, so they think it's happiness, but actually they're suffering. You can go on, on this.
It seems to be, I was thinking about that, it is like fueled in part or whole by impersonalism. Because, they say you can, instead of I'm not saying anyone in particular, but I'll just label this ISKCON or GBC. So therefore, I'm not pointing the finger at anyone directly. I'm just saying that there's just this. I've got, as you said, an excuse or a justification, a rationalization.
Rationalize not to do something. Yeah. No, we agree. We are still individuals who make mistakes. We agree with that. But doesn't mean you abandon what Prabhupada wanted us to. He said, don't leave the movement.
My father once asked us, there was myself and two of my brothers, and he asked us at the dining table of the family, what's wrong with society? So we gave it to him, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then he asked us, what are you going to do about it? What do you want to do about it? And we were saying, we'll just blow it all up and start again.
Mad Max.
Yeah. So then he said something that's always stuck with me. He said, you can never change society from without. You have to change from within. And I realised that, that no matter what people say, it's like, and that's why I say, people come to one, show us if you think, that...
Yeah, you can also challenge them, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. But we always say, and I always say that, if we behave properly, people will see how good we are. Yeah, we have our flaws, but we are better than the rest. Okay. Alright, we'll stop here. Antara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Today's half-day fast.
Yes.
Oh. What? At least I fast. You want to eat, you can eat.
Yeah.
No, I think the breakfast came for you.
They can bring it or keep it in the ashram until noon time.
Lunch also.
Yeah, you can bring whatever, the lunch has to be by midday, I think, or 12:30, like that.
We're all just waiting in the back.
Huh?
You need it.
No, he took his thing. Did you stop?
Maybe it's on the phone.
I was going to
Finish it.